So hello Jake Larson and everyone else in the world. I think I've done enough videos now where people have noticed in the background a certain large piece of photography equipment. So I figure that before any nasty rumors get started about me, I should just tell you the story of how I came to own a Heidelberg drum scanner. So obviously the answer is very simple. If you're gonna have a nice camera and like nice Leica lenses and all that shit, and you're not using like the best scanner in the world, why even bother? Why even bother? Go digital, go digital. You just don't waste your time. Actually, that is so not the reason. But before I tell you the actual story of how this came to be in my basement, I'm gonna power it down because it's kind of loud. Okay, the actual story of how I came to acquire this piece of machinery. It's one of those stories that if you're watching a TV series about that wasn't trying to be funny and they use it as a plot point, you'd probably be going, oh, come on, that never happens. So the story started with a joke. Yeah, a joke. This is back in November 2016. I think it was like a Tuesday or Thursday night. I was kind of bored. I was like, oh, there's an art opening down at a local gallery. I'll go down there and just check out the artwork and do some minor socializing, whatever. So I get down to the gallery and I do the opening night thing where you look at a piece on the wall and you walk and you bump into someone you know and you talk to them for a while and you look at another piece, and then like as the crowds keep conversing, you spend most of your time just going, hey Jim, hey Bob, blah 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 blah, small talk everywhere. You know how these things go if you've gone to enough gallery openings, right? So at one point during this opening, I end up talking to the owner of a local photography studio. Now this guy's been in business a long time, like a couple decades. It's a huge space, tons of equipment, all this jazz, you know. So we get to the point where kind of run out of conversation and my brain starts spinning like, do I just walk away and keep going or make small talk? Walk away and keep going or make small talk? And then the brain finally, the big wheel of my brain goes, say something stupid. So I'm like, hey, you happen to have a drum scanner you're looking to get rid of? To which his eyes get a bit wide and he just goes, yes, come pick it up tomorrow. Like, what? No, you're not supposed to say yes to that. That's, you're tugging on me, right? You're not, But sure as hell, he had a drum scanner he wanted to get rid of. So the next day, during my lunch hour, I hop in my car and drive over to the studio to pick up this drum scanner. So I'm not ignorant to how big these things can be. Like a couple years previously, I was in Alex So's studio looking at his big chromograph, which is larger than this one, and like, I know drum scanners can be huge and unwieldy, but for some reason, I'm just thinking, oh, he has one of the Howtech drum scanners, which are, well, still not small, could fit on a table reasonably and could fit in a car reasonably. So that's what I figure I'm picking up, is like maybe 100, 150 pound drum scanner. Walk into his studio and we snake through all the stuff, all the equipment, back to the corner where the scanner's sitting, and it's as big as I am. And also on top of that weighs about 500 pounds. So suddenly a problem presents itself to me. I'm not picking this up and moving into my car that day, that's for sure. And I also find out that they had never had it working at their studio, so it was kind of a dead on arrival piece of equipment, I guess. So I take this knowledge and go home and just sit on it for a while, think about it, do some logistics, and then I'm thinking like, this thing weighs more than anything I've ever moved by like a factor of 5. It just kind of overwhelmed me, and I was like, I don't want to do this. This is too much of a headache. What if I break my leg getting it in there and then it doesn't work, it never works, and I have this huge giant piece of thing in my basement now I have a broken leg and just can't get it out, and yeah, just seemed like too much of a hassle. So I kind of just slid on it, just didn't ever commit to taking this piece of equipment out of their garage. So about a year goes by, and in the meantime, some of my friends go ahead and buy themselves a brewery. This brewery happens to be right next door to this photo studio. So I start going to this brewery to support my friend's endeavor, And also the owner of the photo studio starts going to the brewery because it's right next door, so it's a nice, easy after work place for him to go and run into him again. And he's like, hey, you still want to get that scanner if I want to hear? Like, he didn't want it because it was huge and it didn't work. And I suppose this is a good time to tell you the reason how they got the scanner. So the story I was told at this point was that there was another company in town, Advanced Star, that did like magazine publishing, you know, the kind of people who actually buy this stuff originally and use it to publish. So a couple years prior, they shut their doors. I don't know the reason why, but that's irrelevant. But they shut their doors and did an auction of all their equipment. And after all the equipment auction was done, all that was left was this guy unsold. So apparently the people at the auction called up the guys at the studio, his partner at the time, and was like, hey, you want to get this, you want to take this scanner off our hands? No one bought it at auction. So they're like, yeah, we'll take it. So that guy loaded up a trailer, hauled it over there, tried to get it to work, never could get it to work. And that's where it sat for, I don't know how many years. So at this point in time, that partner had left the studio and just abandoned the big old Heidelberg there for the other guy who was kind of sick of moving it around and just having it take up space. So me walking around and being like, hey, you got a jump scanner? Was like, oh yes, get this thing off my hands, please, please, please. So back to the meetup at the pub again, and he's like, when do you want to get this thing out of my space? So I'm like, oh, okay, let me do some research again, and I'll see if this is feasible. So during this second research cycle of what I could do to get this scanner in here without killing myself, I come across the company Hudson Graphic Services, which is a company that at the time consisted of 2 people, and all they did was travel the world and move and refurbish these Heidelberg scanners for people who were in the exact predicament I'm in. So I got in touch with them and found out that for them to send someone across the country, move the scanner, refurberize it, get everything working, would only cost me about as much as 2 brand new Epson V800s. Now things are starting to look a little more promising. So fast forward to January 2018, and finally I got a mover coming to help me deal with my newly acquired Heidelberg jump scanner. So the tech is showing up in January, which northern Minnesota is a huge crapshoot of weather. Like, are we gonna try moving this thing when it's like 30 below and anytime you touch it, you stick to it and your fingers turn black and fall off? Or is it gonna be blizzard out? Like, kind of a weird time of year to do anything like that around here with someone who has to travel so far to do it, right? But we luck out and he gets here on a day that for January is stunning, like 25 degrees Fahrenheit. That might sound cold to you people like living in like hot climates, but after months of just dead cold, these 20-degree days in January are like heaven, and you just don't even wear a coat because it's so temperate. And it didn't even like snow that much leading up to it, so there wasn't like any snow obstacles. It was just a really fortunate run of weather for this operation of moving the scanner. So the first day we pack up the scanner at the photo lab and then drive it back to my house, which is only a couple miles, a nice easy move. And we also learned that you can indeed fit one of these into a 2010 Pontiac Vibe. So if you ever run into one of these and you want a Pontiac Vibe, you have the space to move it. But first day, we very precariously, the 2 of us in a power lifter, scoot this damn thing down my basement stairs, which is possibly like the most terrifying half hour to an hour of my life, just very slowly going, okay, is this the one where we die? Is this the one where we die? Is this the one where we die? And eventually we got her here, and relief. And then the next day I go to work and the scanner tech sits here in my basement all day and refurbishes Mr. Jump Scanner. Really, you know, that's kind of been it. I mean, it hasn't moved from this spot in 2.5 years now, because it's just, I'm not moving that thing. And we all have lived happily ever after. So in a nutshell, how I came to own this thing was essentially a thrift store where I paid $0, a little reasonable amount on top of that to get it moved, and then if you yourself ever come across an opportunity to own one of these, my 2 pieces of advice are: make sure you're not at a point in your life where you're constantly moving from house to house to apartment, because you don't want this if that's where your life is at. And 2, get a hold of Hudson Graphic Service because they know everything there is to know about getting these things moved safely, up and running if anything needs to be maintained, and all the weird, archaic, obtuse software and computer stuff you need to have on hand to run some of this old tech. So I guess that's really all I wanted to say in this video. I didn't want you watching my other content and thinking that like I'm some rich money bags who's just throwing around tens of thousands of dollars to scan their film better than everyone else. Not the truth. If you have any other questions about the whole situation, ask them in the comments. I'll do my best to respond to you. And if anything really gets asked a lot, maybe I can do a video on that subject as well. Oh, one more thing I want to show you. Okay, one last funny thing about getting a giant 500-pound piece of metal and plastic technology from the year 2000 into your basement is that when you want to open this up to put your film in, this whole thing has to go up. And as you can see, oh, the ceiling is right there, and there's floor joists and all that jazz. So I guess one of the pain points for the tech trying to install this was positioning it in just the right spot so that when it opens, it fits between these joists and doesn't mash into everything. Oh. I don't know if I let this hobby slide this far.